Hello and welcome to Read Brave, a comics podcast from the Graphic Media Podcast Network. I'm Vinton Bain.
I'm Cory Casto.
I'm Scout Casto.
Vinton, did you take my advice and read Spider-Woman last week?
I absolutely did, and you probably knew that because my Goodreads has been blowing up with all the issues. Spider-Woman is amazing. You were so right.
So
I'm
good.
loving it so much. I just finished the first volume where she's pregnant and then has the baby, and it was so great. And even the
Did you
stuff
cry
leading
a
up to
little?
that. I refuse to answer that at this point.
I cannot confirm or deny.
I would like to point you toward my lawyer. No, it's fantastic. As a matter of fact, I think I'm safe to say without this person knowing, I bought this for somebody's birthday after reading it because I knew that they would like it so much. So immediately purchased it for somebody else even.
It's pretty great.
Yeah, so definitely go read that. Early recommendation already on the podcast.
Well, and Dennis Hopeless, who writes Spider-Woman, also writes All New X-Men. So I feel like you are already predispositioned to enjoy it.
Right. And yeah, just the things he was, I mean, you guys have both talked about this series on here before, but I remember Scout saying that he was like Bryan Kevon, that he gets what a woman's perspective is, especially when it comes to like pregnancy, that he got a lot of that spot on. And
yeah, he was a pregnant woman in a past life. I'm fairly certain.
And so it was interesting to read all those things, especially that issue where she just has the baby, and the whole beginning of the issue is her opening the door to her friends and talking about everything that's happening. And I loved like even the way the art is done in that. The art in this is one of my favorite things because the layouts are just so good and interactive. And that scene where she's explaining how hard it is to have a newborn baby and to adjust your lifestyle, where they have the panels are straight and nice and narrow. And she's halfway in and halfway out of all of them.
Yeah.
Like leaning and grabbing things. And
Yep.
I'm like, this is so perfect. This art is beautiful and is an integral part of telling this story.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, Cory, what have you been reading?
Well, one thing I read was Batgirl and the Birds of Prey.
Oh, yeah.
It was interesting. I wanted to see what it was like in comparison to Hope Larson's Batgirl and then, of course, Cameron Stewart's Batgirl.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed it. It was a fun read. I mean, it wasn't thought-provoking, but it was what I wanted a Batgirl comic to be, I think, you know. And
I feel like that's how all of those, the Hope Larson and the Cameron Stewart and Babs Tarr, like I feel like all of those Batgirls are, if you're looking for something that's going to make a political statement or, you know, which I mean, the Cameron Stewart and Babs Tarr ones did a little bit, but I think you have to go into them knowing they're going to be a fun, light, easy read. Yeah.
You have your serious comics and you have your fun comics.
Yeah.
And there's a time and place for both of those.
Right. And sometimes it's fun to blur the line a little bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
One thing that I liked about it was that it was written and illustrated by women.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty interesting. Julia, it's two sisters, Julia and Shauna Benson, who are writers for the television show The 100.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
They write the comic. And then Claire Rowe is the illustrator. And I liked it. I've read some Birds of Prey in the past I really wasn't a fan of. So I was glad that this was much better. You know, maybe it's just me. Maybe it was bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this one. I thought it was good. I also wanted to mention a comic that the issue number 1 came out last week called God Country. And I don't want to tell you what it's about. I just want you to go read it. And if you're listening, you should invest the $2.99 or $3.99 to go pick it up because it's really good. It's not what you would expect. Scott, what did you read this week?
Well, I was very excited to get issue 2 of Hawkeye, the Kate Bishop Hawkeye, which we've been so excited about.
The only Hawkeye.
Well, no, I love the other Hawkeye too, but I do love Kate. And again, I feel like she's hitting the mark again. You know, Kelly Thompson is writing it, and I think that she understands that Kate Bishop, it should be fun. I read an article. I apologize that I can't remember where, but they were talking about how they thought that she was making a statement with what happened with Chelsea Kane and Mockingbird, because that first issue is about a guy harassing a girl online.
Oh, right.
Instead
I guess I didn't connect that in my head.
Yeah,
but
which
you're
I hadn't
totally right.
either, but I thought that does make sense
Yeah.
that she would try and say something about that in this way. So, again, really excited about it. I hope that it keeps the same momentum.
Yeah, I'm really loving it a lot. I mean, obviously I mention this every time, but this was one of the things we were dreaming and hoping for when we started this podcast. We mentioned how much we'd love if she got her own series, and now she does, and it's going great so far.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that one of the things that made Matt Fraction's Hawkeye so good was that it was like a detective story with superheroes in it. And I feel like that Kelly Thompson's done really well to make a detective story with superheroes.
Yeah.
Right. It's not
fantastical things.
It's not another origin story. It's not another event. It's not any of that. You would need to know a little bit about Kate Bishop beforehand, I think, to really enjoy all the references and everything.
Yeah.
But it's fun that it's
full
something
of
totally
references
separate.
too,
Yeah,
which is good. I like.
I do too. I'd said not too long ago that I was going to quit mentioning that I was reading The Walking Dead because neither one of you read it. And so it feels pointless because I can't bounce anything off of you. But damn it, this last one was supposed to be the last part of the Whisperer War. And it wasn't the freaking last part. Like it was like, oh, there's a giant horde of zombies. And so that's not the last part, guys.
They're pulling a Marvel Comics and extending everything.
And I feel like I've seen a lot of, and I know we try to keep this all positive and everything. And Robert Kirkman, I do love you, but I think it might be time to just
call it good.
Shut her down, man. You know,
wrap it up.
I don't know. I did the first page had a really great moment with Negan, which anyone who reads the comics, I think, generally agree that he's the best character they've done. And so it was worth it for that moment. But
that's got to be something I need to jump back into, at least so you have someone to bounce them off of when you talk about it.
Well, I mean, the good thing is you could probably catch up in an hour. So.
Yeah. What issue about are they at now?
That was 162.
Oh, man, I'm only halfway. That means I stopped around 80.
Yeah, but they're so quick to read. Yeah. I mean, it's like less than 5 minutes an issue.
I went through all that whole 80 like in a sitting, not like one sitting, but like over a weekend or something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if anyone did want to catch up, I mean, it would be a quick thing. And it's difficult because I feel like the story overall is suffering. They don't know where to go. But they do give you these little moments here and there with the characters that they get you to like. So it forces you to keep reading. It's a trap. So Cory wanted me to read Ether, which so far there's been issue 1 and 2. Matt Kent did. I'm really enjoying it. So, and
it's good.
Yeah, I knew. I mean, most of the time when you recommend something to me, I end up liking it, even if it looks like something I wouldn't like.
Yeah.
So, I loved the character, the Blaze, in them. Yeah, and I would really like to see more of her story.
Bubblegum Princess.
Yeah.
I feel like that it's like, I said this on the last time, and I think it's like a grown-up Adventure Time.
I could see that.
That's what I envisioned, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
The Blaze was Bubblegum Princess who protects the inhabitants of Ether.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. The only other 2 things I read that I thought were worth mentioning was I did finally get around to reading volume 1 of Lady Killer by Joelle Jones. I told Cory that I really liked it, that, you know, I mean, she's a mom in, I believe it's set in the 50s.
I think so.
Who's a hired killer. And it's interesting because a lot of times in stories where the women are the killer, you know, it said that women usually just poison people or what have you, but this is a woman who will kill people with knives and hammers. The only thing she doesn't like is guns. So kind of an interesting take from that avenue. The only thing I told Cory was I feel like it's a story that's been done a lot. The only difference was I switched it up and made it a woman. Yeah. So, but the art was beautiful. And it's a good story for what it is.
Joelle Jones is an amazing artist.
Yeah, she definitely is. So I'll definitely keep reading more. It kept me interested enough to want to read more. And I know, Vinton, you'll want to talk about this, but Unstoppable Wasp, number 1.
Oh, man.
Which
yeah.
when
we can just both talk about it right now.
Yeah. Before we talk about it, I haven't read it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't pick it up because I felt like I've got enough cute comics.
Well,
in
and
my
that
life.
was
You
why-
don't though. That's the thing. You would think, but you don't.
Well, it was funny because you had recommended it to me on Goodreads and even went as far to leave a comment in all caps, "You have got to read this." And I was like, I trust him, but it was just, I felt the same way as Cory. It was like, I feel like Marvel's throwing us, with the exception of maybe Moon Knight and Vision, a lot of the stuff they're throwing us are just these little cutesy girl comics, which I'm not against, but it's also like it feels so oversaturated right now.
You gotta have some variety.
Yeah. So
I guess I just can't like be upset at it because it's been so long without something like
that's
that.
very
Now
true
that
too.
they're finally doing
It's-
it.
Yeah, they're finally throwing in some things with all the awful events and stuff. So
Cute is the new Deadpool for Marvel.
As far as Marvel's concerned, Deadpool's still the new Deadpool
Yeah.
because he still is getting new series after new series.
Yeah.
There's Deadpool,
Duckpool.
Duckpool, and then Deadpool versus Punisher, and then of course his like other like 3 or 4 main
Yeah.
titles.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Scott.
no,
Yeah,
it's okay.
sorry.
But no, I did wind up really loving it. Like I read the last page and I was like, okay, that was awesome. So I think, and I should have brought the issue with me because I didn't, but it was, I love the moment where Wasp and Mockingbird are talking about, Mockingbird is telling her about the test that Bruce Banner made up to find the smartest people,
Right.
and talks about how until recently, until Moon Girl comes along, the woman highest on the list marked it, I think it was like number 26. Was
Yeah,
that
it was
right?
20 something.
20 something, and how ridiculous that was. And, Wasp is like, yeah, that's ridiculous. But then she says, she points out that she thinks creativity is maybe even more important than being smart. She
Right.
says, knowing things doesn't change the world, inventing things does.
Yeah.
And that was such a like, oh, I love that,
Yeah.
So
And she encouraged her, she was like, you deserve a place on that list
Yes.
for sure. And
Yeah.
she even, Alex, she pointed out, she's like, well, that list was also made by men. So-
exactly. Yeah. So overall, they were like science ladies having science adventures and everything about it.
Yeah.
I loved. Yeah.
I really liked when Wasp and Mockingbird are sitting down together and just talking, and Wasp is just geeking out being in her
Yes.
presence. And Mockingbird's just like, can I just have a hug? No one's
Yeah.
ever like talked to me this way. This is amazing. Like finally she feels appreciated for
Yeah.
something, and she feels like somebody
Well-
does look up to her, and like what she's doing is worth something.
Yeah, well, and she says, the only thing I ever get recognized for is this superhero stuff, not me being a
Yeah,
scientist,
right.
So to be recognized for that meant a lot to her.
Yeah. And so I just thought that was great. And of course,
Yeah.
it starts out with Kamala Khan, and that's what really pulled me in at first. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, she's here. And of course, she's not in much of it, but
Which
and
I'm
what's-
fine with, really,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I do love Kamala, I do, but I feel like
she's in
let's
a
not
lot.
ruin her by
Yeah.
putting her in everything.
Yep. She's already in Champions and this, and doing
Yeah.
guest appearances in a lot of other places. And then, of course, she's showing up in that new series that is like Secret something, Shield something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I should know these things.
Yeah. Only good part of that is maybe they'll incorporate her into the MCU someday.
Yes, which is what people are actually saying a lot about that new series, is that they're like, oh, this gives us hope that she might show up in Agents of
Yeah.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
Which
so
would be nice.
maybe Moon Girl's in that series too, so maybe she'll show up in Agents
Yeah.
of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Which I
Although
don't know,
Dinosaur would be hard to do.
I did see when Captain Marvel was announced as being a movie, someone said that the after credit scene should be Kamala hanging up a poster in her room of Captain Marvel. And I was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
That would be amazing. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we don't need Kamala in the show. We need Kamala in the movies
Yeah.
in the big time, which they probably do too, because it's a lot of money and special effects
It
to make
is.
her use her powers.
yeah, definitely.
That's not an easy TV thing.
No.
We really just need more interconnectivity between the TV and the movies, not just
Yeah.
name drops here and there.
Yeah, definitely.
I need these characters to show up in each other's worlds.
Yeah.
Here's hoping.
So that was it. I mean, I read some other stuff, but those were the things that really stuck with me. Vinton, did you have more to add on
Yeah.
what you've read this week?
So I read quite a bit this week. Of course, Spider-Woman, and of course, Spider-Woman, and then the other things that we've mentioned. I also read Spider-Man Miles Morales, which
Kissy.
yeah, has the kissing cover, the double Spider-Man kiss, because they're both hanging upside down,
Aw.
which is a little misleading, like most covers are, because Spider-Gwen doesn't actually show up until toward the end of it. And I mean, of course, she does show up at the beginning, but she's not in much of it. This whole issue, while I did really like it, is kind of a bit of a tease because it's a lot of tell and not very much show. It's just like lot of talking and him talking about something that happened and telling you a long dialogue and leading up to something, but it doesn't ever actually get there. And they were like tease you at the end. They're like, yeah, well, you'll get it next issue. I'm like, oh, okay.
The good news is that the next issue comes out today, though. Spider-Man 16, I think.
Yeah. So, pick that up. I'm gonna. Great Lakes Avengers again. Still amazing. I love that cover where Flatman has disguised himself as the cover. Yeah. It's so funny. But yeah, it's really off the wall and delightful in every way, and of course in every good way. Right. So I think people should really be getting into that. Motor Crush is still good. I've read the second issue of that. Is just as good as the first issue, and hold my interest there. Not really on the top tier of what I'm reading right now, but I have a lot of hopes for it. And it has really good stuff going on for sure. Miss Marvel had a new issue that was interesting. We got to see her doing some online gaming and then a bit of a nefarious plot in that. It's always fun to just watch her like be a normal kid for a little bit. And so that was interesting to see that online gaming world part of it. I read All New Wolverine, and that was kind of a hard read, actually. It's good, but I have a lot of like phobias when it comes to certain things, and seeing her get put into that deprivation tank, it's painful for her, like gave me anxiety. It was hard. There wasn't very much to it though. And I was like, that's good. Not as great as it has been. Hopefully the next issue picks up a little bit. It's not bad by any means.
Weapon X-23.
Yeah. Shade the Changing Girl. This past one was amazing. And finally just like they've all been good, but this issue 4 was definitely the best one yet. There's just so much to love. There's a lot of character development, and this one just hooked me for sure. I'm totally in. And the short comics at the end just keep getting better.
They do.
I love the backup stories.
I think I've said before that Shade is my favorite thing coming out of Young Animal, which is weird because I thought Doom Patrol would be.
And I definitely started seeing it with this one.
Yeah. But I think that my favorite thing was that this issue addressed a lot redemption and forgiveness and admitting your faults, even though they weren't things that Shade had done. But I thought it was interesting that those are all things that humans are really bad at. So it took this being from another world to come in and own up for what she had done.
Right.
Yeah.
I also read, caught up on, I should say, because I didn't realize I'd fallen behind on the New Avengers with Mike Del Mundo art, which the art is still just fabulous. And I don't know how they're going to keep up with that. Obviously, someone else is going to have to step in and do the art unless he's just really fast. I just can't imagine doing that art that fast.
Yeah.
So it's really good. The art, of course, beautiful. But the story, on the other hand, lately with these two issues is really timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, and a little bit hard to follow, and it's convoluted, and they're doing this like time travel stuff that just gets really complicated when you're dealing with time travelers, and then like, oh, our baby selves were killed, so we shouldn't exist, so we have to be in this temporal state, and this, I'm like, this is really convoluted, guys. Yeah. But the most recent issue has the Wasp kind of saving the day and doing some really cool stuff, and I just loved the Wasp in this, and especially after reading her own series, getting to know a little bit more about the character, and then seeing her step up in this and basically show the Avengers how being a hero is done. And so I really liked that a lot. Still reading Unworthy Thor. Have either of you been reading this?
No.
Really interesting. There's not much to say about it. It's leading up to something that I think will be cool. Really just a lot of cool cameos in this most recent issue. I also picked up the #1 of US Avengers, which is kind of leading off of the AIM team that was most recently in its own series. It's pretty good. There's a lot of New Mutants callbacks, which I like because that's one of my favorite things. Like there's even the Magnum PI mention, which is one of their shows that they brought up a lot in New Mutants. And then Sam has a Lila Cheney shirt on, which is awesome. Aside from that, it can be a little heavy-handed in its messaging. I don't know how it can be heavy-handed in its message and unclear in its message. Yeah. I think both those things are true. Like they're obviously trying to push a message, but I'm not sure what the message is. Yeah. So, it's just an issue 1, so not too sure where it's headed at the moment, but I could see this future of it going either way. It could be good or bad. So we'll see on that one. That was the one, of course, that they did different states for each one. And
Right,
of course,
yeah.
we got, as Oklahoma, got Thor. Because
Yes.
Asgard was located in Oklahoma for a short period of time.
Oh, I never made that connection,
Yep.
but that makes sense.
That was a fun run for at least the first volume. I didn't like the second volume as much because everyone was like, oh, Loki, he's fine now. Let's just trust him.
Yeah.
Guys, really? Come on. Nova issue number 2 is fantastic. I'm so excited that they brought back Richard Rider, who disappeared during the Annihilation series. What was it, 8 years ago, something like that. And he's coming back now, and they have a whole panel in there where he's trying to figure out what's going on and what he's missed, basically. And it's hilarious. Actually, I think I'm going to look it up and just read the dialogue off it real quick. Yeah, he's talking to Miss Marvel, and he says, "You're Miss Marvel?" And she says, "Yep." And he goes, "What happened to Carol?" And he goes, "You mean Captain Marvel?" And he says, "He's dead," because then Captain Marvel was
Right.
a different person. And Miles Morales says, "She's not." And then he says, "And you're Spider-Man." And Spider-Man goes, "Yeah." Is he dead too? No. And then Kamala says, Cyclops is. And he goes, Cyclops? And then young Cyclops shows up and goes, "Hi, my adult self went crazy and died. I'm from the past and stuck in this present time." And he goes, "I hate everything about that sentence." And he says, "And you are," to Viv, who's also there. And she says, "I'm the synthetic daughter of Vision." He goes,
Yeah.
"Is every superhero 12 now?" Because Totally Awesome Hulk's also there. And Amadeus Cho says, "Maybe you're just old." And yeah, the art in this is really interesting. We'll talk here in a minute in a segment with Bryan from Empire Strikes, and we talked about the cartoony art styles, I think a little bit off the air, but just how it's hard to do like the cartoony art style and then have people take a comic seriously. This one's a little bit more fun, so it's not as bad, but it is a really cartoony style, but I really, really like it, especially the background work. This artist does amazing backgrounds for these comics. Champions number 4. You guys all read Champions number
Yep.
4?
We did.
That was fun. A bit of a random happenstance story where they get pulled into the ocean there.
Yeah.
Not really much to talk about for it. It was pretty funny though.
I just, is Gwenpool going to be a part of the team now? Because I'm like,
think it's
guys.
going to be like a small cameo joke thing. I
Okay.
don't think they're going to do a permanent thing, but yeah, they definitely teased that.
Yeah.
I read Gamora number 1 as per your request, and that was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. I'm really excited about the future of that series and learning more about her history. I'm really glad that they're doing that. And yeah, I read a ton of Spider-Woman, but we've already talked about that. So
Yeah.
that's it for me. Long-winded. So today we have 2 segments. First off, we have a segment with Bryan from Empire Strikes, as I mentioned, talking about upcoming comic books, especially even ones that are coming out today as this is being listened to. If you're listening to it on drop day, things that you should be picking up. So give it a listen.
Enjoy.
All right, so we're sitting here with Bryan from Empire Strikes Comics.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the comics that we've read in the last year came from Bryan's recommendations. And so instead of hoarding those recommendations for ourselves, we felt like we should have him on the podcast to pass those recommendations on to you.
Oh, yay. Well, that's what I'm here for, I suppose.
So,
Well, in
Bryan,
more ways than one. Yeah.
yeah.
That's exactly what I'm here for.
Bryan, what are you excited about coming down the pike?
Oh, man. Well, actually quite a few things coming through that. Well, there's a lot of current series that have been ongoing that I'm waiting to finish up. Like, primarily for me, After Death has been probably, man, that book.
Yeah.
I can't even say enough of it. And it's awesome because it's only 3. So it's like super to get into, but just like the premise of it. Have you've read both of them?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
We've read them, and I think what I love so much about them is the way that they're laid out.
Yeah.
We mentioned before that it was kind of like a picture book for grown-ups.
Yeah, it's funny whenever people would come through and they'd talk about like, what's a comic? It's like Saga would be my go-to. Like as comics are a medium, this is it. But now it's totally After Death because of the like novella style that he does when they're talking about the past and then the comic stuff and the new stuff. That book is just awesome. And then obviously, the whole like curing death thing.
Yeah.
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 That's, that's a very cool one. But there are some new. Well, speaking of Jeff Lemire, there is Royal City. I don't know if you guys have heard about that coming out. It's one of his.
I haven't either.
Oh man. So basically, it's about this family like over 3 decades. And if you're familiar with the way Jeff Lemire writes, he's always kind of gets you more involved with characters, especially when there's only like a couple. Like,
Yeah.
and so saying that, I know he's writing Extraordinary X-Men right now, and I don't know if that's, Marvel being heavy-handed or what, but it seems like he can't really focus on any one character at all. But when you're reading stuff like Black Hammer and Old Man Logan and Moon Knight, it totally goes off. But but basically this will be him writing and art as well. So hopefully that'll be his next Essex County in most aspects.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised since I love Jeff Lemire so much. I wasn't really enjoying his run on X-Men, and I love the X-Men. So
Right.
what's happening here?
Yeah, and that's why I was like, it's got to be something with Marvel.
Yeah,
but,
surely.
Whatever. And then, there's the new American Gods that's coming out. So you guys have read American Gods, I assume.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they're finally doing a comic adaptation in time for the TV show.
Right.
Coming out on Stars. Space Riders. If you
I read Space Riders, yeah.
Right. Finally, there's a sequel to it.
That's awesome.
And they're doing reprints of the first book as well through
That's cool.
Black Mask. So that'll be cool. Those are the big ones that I'm super stoked for. I've got my little list of things here. There's some other fun ones like the new Charles Soule Ryan Brown book, Curse Words, about Wizard, the last wizard. And it's just going to be I've read the preview. Well, I can't say I read the preview. I saw the artwork for the preview, which, pretty much is just what it's going to look like, but you don't know the context of the story or anything, which is I like in previews because I like going in blind. But that one looks like it'll be fun. He had done another book, God Hates Astronauts.
Yeah.
Check that one.
Yeah.
And it's just absurdity. That's all it needs to be. It's just fun. It's fun. It's comics. It doesn't take itself seriously. That and new Rat Queens series will be starting.
I'm really interested to
Yeah.
see where he takes it.
It's cool because it's not a reboot,
Right.
but it's just more focused this go around. With everything that happened with the
All the
last
drama with-
Yeah. It was like, okay, let's kind of get back to some things, which I'm hoping for because it, after what was it? It was only like 14, 15 issues over like 3 years.
It took a long time for them to all, which I kind of stopped reading for a while for that reason. That's the best way for me to lose interest. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all the people talking about that made me stop. I only read the first volume and I was really into it with everyone telling me about what was going on. I was like, oh, I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, and also I guess in regards to that, the 7 to Eternity, which is kind of like the more serious Rat Queens in more aspects. That'll be closing up on its first volume here pretty soon. So that should be coming out in the next couple of months or whatever. Which there is a sweet artist proof edition of that for the number 1 coming out. Which
That sounds awesome.
Jerome Opena's art is just sick with it. So I'm excited for that. That's it. Yeah, as far as stuff coming out, I guess you guys saw the Monsters Unleashed stuff coming, right?
Yes.
Which is, I like the way they're doing this. It's just happening. Like there's no like build up to it.
Right,
There's no like precursor 0 issue 47 variants, here's this thing. It's just monsters show up. Done. All right, cool. But then the Secret Empire thing, that's the one I'm a little hesitant on. Yeah, it's Marvel's kind of gone around in this circle of constantly rehashing, events and such. And it's okay. So I understand it's a new world, yada, 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 but Civil War II, really? Come on now. Then it's like Secret Wars was good, but the spin out from that, and then Secret Empire again. It's like what route are we taking this time?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys, something. And the fact that so we just came off of Civil War II, which immediately leads into Inhumans versus X-Men. And it's like they're just constantly doing these big events.
Yeah.
Kind of like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Slow it down. Slow your roll.
I kind of wish that everyone would just get it in their heads, like as people that buy comic books, to not buy certain things like that because it just encourages them. And it's like the reason why they do it is because those events sell so well, and like the number 1 sells so well. So let's just keep rebooting all these things and keep redoing this. And I was just recently listening to the Marvel Untold Story book and they kind of explained in the 90s where they came to those realizations, and they slowly toward the 2000s were like, oh, we just have to do this every year. And that's how we keep comic sales up.
Right. Yeah.
And then draw it out for a year.
But it's like, I wonder how much that's really that's really doing it. Because,
Yeah.
you know, whenever, you know, they say a book sells out and this, that, and the other, it's really, well, it sold out on the distributor level. So I could be sitting with, you know, hundreds
Right.
of copies of this
Right.
book,
Right.
but technically it sold out. It's
Yeah.
like, I didn't sell any of them.
Yeah, the way they
But-
keep up with comic sales is just as bad as they keep up with like TV ratings and
Right.
with like streaming. So like, there's no one has actually done the work to figure out what's selling and what people are watching and what people are reading.
Yeah.
So
And then, you know, they see all this stuff and it's like, I wonder, you know, where they're getting reviews from. Cause I know you and I, we've talked about like Civil War was really just kind of meh,
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
but how
the last issue of that was the only issue that I even really enjoyed, frankly.
Yeah. And even then it was just like, okay, well, that's done now,
Yeah.
finally.
And half the run it was
Yeah.
just, it's over.
Yeah. And with either Monsters or Secret Empire, like they're saying it's it's twice a month, so every other week, which at this point, I don't believe them, man. It's been, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Since Infinity, they've been constantly just, you know, inundated with publishing delays and, you know, Secret Wars should have only took 4 months, you know, but instead it took almost a year. Same with,
Yeah.
Civil War took almost a year, you know, it's
Yep.
just like, guys, come on.
And it was unnecessarily drawn out. Some of those issues, just reading them, you're like, oh, they are purposely drawing this out so
Yeah.
they can add an extra issue in.
And this go around was probably the worst in regards to them having started the launch of everything after the story. And so we're already reading all this stuff that happened. And so by the time, you know, they finally told us what happened through Civil War, it was like, you know, it's just like, okay, well, okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
The other day you told me about Power Man and Iron Fist's reaction to Civil War, and I thought that was the best.
Yeah. And that's another thing, the whole like tie-in situation. It was like, yeah, okay, well, in Power Man, Iron Fist, the best tie-in, it was like 2 panels at the end. They were like, we're not going to do this, you know? And it's like, but that's a Civil War tie-in. You guys want- Come on now.
Yep.
That'll go in the $500 Ultimate Collection of Civil War 2. But those will be fun. Yeah, new Power Man stuff will be coming out. New Hulk's been really good. I'm like,
Yeah, I need to
not.
get caught up on that. I've been reading things that he's in, Champions, and what was it?
No, I'm talking Hulk.
Hulk.
Yeah,
the She-Hulk book. Yeah, that's really good too. Yeah,
That was, but Amadeus is fun too.
I'm really
don't get me
excited
wrong.
about that. What was it that just recently Wolverine and Totally Awesome Hulk just showed up in someone's book? It was Ghost Rider? It was Ghost Rider.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they like are just making almost a team book out of Ghost Rider, but without them being on the team. They're
Right,
just
yeah.
all like in the same area doing stuff. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this.
Yeah, it's like Moon Knight. He's got a
Yeah.
team book in his own mind. And I love the fact that we don't even really know if he's like in the real world, like
Right,
this whole
yeah.
time. It's just all in his head,
Yeah.
which is cool. I like that. And
The
again,
last issue will just be him like laying on a bed somewhere.
right? Yeah, actually in a hospital.
Right.
So this comes out on Wednesday. Do you have any books that are coming out this Wednesday that you would recommend that people pick up, or even if they're like number 2s or 3s, that they should go ahead and go back to the first one and start?
All right. So this Wednesday we got Amazing Spider-Man and Clone Conspiracy.
Yeah, which
both coming out,
I'm excited about.
which is super fun.
Love the way it's self-aware, like you were
Yeah.
mentioning earlier. And of course, we lived through that, and it was awful then. And they're now making fun of it a little
Yeah.
bit and making it a little bit better. I think
This is
if they're
this
going to
has been-
rehash
I
it.
like the multiversal aspect of it. You know, with like
Yeah.
with Ben like being the ultimate carrion virus dude, like he's the cure for it all. And it's like every time it's Peter always doing this stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, was it Peter? We don't know. Batman 15, the other half of the Catwoman arc, which is great.
Yeah, you were just telling us a lot about that, and I like that idea a lot. I haven't been keeping up with Batman, and I need to get back into that.
The new run's been weird because I was really excited for it when they said Tom King was going to be writing it,
Yeah.
and which his Vision run was
Yeah.
Yes.
astounding,
Yeah.
right?
One of my
Unreal,
favorite
yeah.
comics of the year. For
Yeah.
sure.
But I think I was more blinded in the way that it was like, okay, yeah, Tom King's going to handle Batman. Well, it's like, well, if you read Vision, the whole story wasn't even really about Vision, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
Batman really hasn't been about Batman, which
Yeah.
is kind of weird. But now with the Catwoman arc, it has gotten personal Batman stuff. And there are, you know, I guess for me, between the two, it's like this Batman run has been more I guess, mental, in regards,
yeah.
psychological in ways, where All-Star Batman, if you want to see Batman being Batman,
Yeah.
you read All-Star Batman, which the new
Okay, I've been
Jock
wondering
art-
if that was any good or not. I haven't picked that up yet.
All-Star is hands down awesome. And that's Scott Snyder. So it's
Right.
kind of nice still having a Scott Snyder
Yeah.
Batman. But like the first arc was Two-Face with John Romita Jr. This one is Mr. Freeze with Jock. And then I don't know who's doing the next arc, but I know Sean Murphy's supposed to be coming through near
that's
the
cool.
end and doing some stuff.
I do love Sean Murphy.
Oh yes, Sean Murphy. But anyways, yeah, Cave Carson is this week,
awesome.
issue 4.
Yeah, I was starting to feel like that was slowing down a little bit. I need that plot to pick up a little bit.
Yeah, I think overall it's like out of the Young Animal stuff, Doom Patrol has really been the only one I can really follow along with, and it's probably just 'cause I already have a history with Doom Patrol or whatever, and it's been so slow coming out. And
Yeah.
Cave Carson is good, but it seems like it's just setting up a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And it hasn't
Right.
really picked up. Same with Shade Changing Girl, same way. That one's just a
That last
beautiful
issue
strip.
of Shade,
I loved it a
sold me
lot.
on it. I'm really
Yeah.
in after
Good.
that last issue for sure.
And then Mother Panic,
Yeah.
it's like, where are we going? It's only issue 2. This stuff, it's been like 5-6 months now.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on with these guys? And I don't know how they're doing that imprint or whatever, but
Yeah.
I can definitely say Doom Patrol's awesome. I'll keep reading Cave,
Right.
but
Yeah.
and Mother Panic is just, it's such a great concept. I'm ready for it to kind of pick up and do some things.
Sure.
Let's see.
And I'm really excited about, we were talking about earlier, Michael Allred coming in to do art for Doom Patrol is
Yeah.
like just a dream thing for me. Like one of my favorite artists working on one of my favorite
Man,
comics.
Mike Hard, he's already such a hard sell because it's like you and I were totally down for already, but he does have a very, I don't know how you could say it, because it is traditional, and it seems very old world because it is kind of like
Right,
a
it's
mod
like-
pop
Yeah.
style
Yeah.
or whatever.
And it's got that pop art quality to it.
Yeah, which a lot of people will get turned off on.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Silver Surfer hasn't been so it's because he's on it, right? And I mean, to me, it's awesome book.
Amazing,
yeah.
yeah.
But it's like I can't get anybody to read Silver Surfer because they're probably more prone to what Silver Surfer
Right.
was, and so it is a different take.
Yeah. And I feel like the problem that he might have is that he does the cartoonier art, but like the more serious, more adult stories. And so the people like that want that type of art want different type of stories. And the people
Right.
that want those stories want different type of art. And so
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fine with it. I love it. But
Saying that, the Silver Surfer works because Dan Slott's writing that, who is more, lighthearted and,
Right,
and so
right.
it fits. So it'll be kind of weird seeing how you do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
He started following me on Twitter and I just
You were
geeked out
so
for like weeks. I was like,
excited.
I'm done with Twitter. I don't have to ever do anything on here ever again. I've made it.
Let's see what else we got. Department H, Volume 1. Matt Kent and his wife doing the murder mystery. What else was there? Gamora 2, Curse Words number 1.
Gamora 2. That's
Mhm.
exciting.
Oh yes.
First one was really good.
Few number 1. Now, it's kind of hard being a comic shop owner because traditionally, if you go into music, you're supposed to listen to all this stuff, right? But at the core, I'm still a fan, right? So I try not to read spoilers and things like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And so Few, I saw it and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this book. And of course, this was like months ago because we ordered so much in advance. So I've already forgotten who's on the team. I don't know. I don't know anything about the story. So I'm totally stoked for that. Which was cool with God Country that just came out last week. Which, did you get a chance to read that?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, not what you would expect, right?
Not at all.
And with that one, all I ever got on preview stuff was the art, so I knew that was going to be cool. And so going in blind, story wise, same with Curse Words. It's like I don't necessarily know what the story is going to be about, but I'm going to read this book. But but I do have the opportunity of being a shop owner and knowing writers and artists, and I recommend stuff to and so it's. Picking stuff off the shelf is kind of hard to do when you don't know anything about it, but it's like that's half the fun.
Sure.
It's like whenever I was a kid going to grab comics, it's like, oh, this looks neat. I don't know what it's about. And we'll find out. Oh, this was horrible. Or oh, this was awesome.
Yeah.
And so like the big twist in God Country, which I'm not going to talk about.
Right. Yeah.
People were like, oh, what's this book about? And I was like, It's just about
Just
an old
read
guy
it.
with Alzheimer's. Just read that. Just go in with that, because that's ultimately, when everything happens, you're just like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
Let's see. Man, there's a lot of good. Not only volume 1's coming out, but then continuing issues. So it's like you can pick up right off the bat, like Horizon, which I don't know if you guys have picked up Horizon at all. It's kind of this lost alien chick, right? Who gets stranded on Earth, has to find other people, yada, yada, yada. Volume 1 is out this week, and then the next issue is as well. So you can get that and get hooked into the new ones.
And you said Killer Be Killed is that way.
Oh, yes.
too,
Killer Be Killed will
which
be
is
coming
really
out this
exciting.
week.
Yeah.
Man, Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips.
Yeah.
Is it this week that they're doing the Walking Dead homage cover for Images?
I think
for
it's-
September? Sure,
no,
coming up.
it's-
Those will
later.
start in February,
just
but
knew
I
they
don't
were
know
doing
what
that. I
week
couldn't
that
remember
one comes
which
out.
Which
issue
we
it
will
was or
have.
anything.
Yeah.
All
But that's
the
exciting.
homage variants
Awesome.
at the shop. Had to make sure that, because that was the tricky part. Whenever they announced all that stuff after our final order cutoffs. So it's like, we had already submitted all of our orders, and they're like, hey, there's extra stuff. It's like, oh, great. Now I don't know if I'm going to be okay. But thankfully, this worked out. What else was there? Oh, man, there was just a big one I just saw.
I know Boom is releasing Slam issue 3, and I'm really excited about that.
Yes.
I'm
Slam
super
3.
excited. Yeah.
Dang it, I just saw it and I was like, heck yeah, that's super sweet. Well, give me a second here. Horizon.
Was it the number 1, or do you remember?
Yeah,
a list over
it was
here,
like,
too.
oh yeah, it's Goddamned. That's what. Yeah,
yeah.
geez, I skipped that. Goddamned volume 1, finally, which Jason Aaron, Story of Cain. It's just, I mean, I don't know. You should read this book.
Yeah, it's Jason Aaron, and that sounds like a very Jason Aaron type story.
Yeah.
But yeah, finally volume 1, which that took forever. Because let's see, it's issue 5 literally just came out like not even a month ago, because it started, I think, issue 4 was back in June. Yeah, it had been
Holy
a while.
cow.
Well, since this is Image and it's all creator-owned stuff, Jason Aaron is on contract with Marvel, so he's writing Doctor Strange, Star Wars, Thor, all this stuff. And then, in Image, he's got Southern Bastards and Goddamned, and oh man, there's a couple other books I'm forgetting offhand. But regardless, so it's like, he has to do these Marvel books. And then when he can, plus the art on Goddamned is intense. And it's painted, so it's like, that could be a holdup as well. It's just a beautiful book. But it's like, unfortunately, they can't focus on that stuff.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
they got to listen to these big guys. We were talking about Horizon.
Speaking of Marvel, they're releasing the next issue of Invincible Iron Man. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah,
I'm really liking the new Iron Man.
Yeah, how is she? Yeah, I haven't read that one.
Yeah, I'm really confused because people are saying her name's Ironheart, but I don't think they've called her that in the comic, and they're still calling the comic Iron Man.
They put her. I think it was issue 14 of the last run.
Did they
And
mention that?
it's like a
by
picture
now.
of her. She's on the cover, and it says Ironheart.
Oh yeah, I just meant like in dialogue. No one's like decided that or said that out loud. And they're still calling the comic Invincible Iron Man. I'm like, just let her be Iron Man. What's the problem here?
What's up with that?
You mentioned that Star Wars Dr. Aphra number 3 is coming out.
Yeah.
I just got caught up with the main Star Wars series and Darth Vader. Finished those out
good.
from what they had of Star Wars, and of course to the end of Darth Vader. I haven't started reading Dr. Aphra though. Is it really good?
Oh yeah, I like Aphra and the droids.
Yeah, I love
Triple
Aphra and the
Zero.
droids in the Vader series. So I was
'cause
thinking I
think,
would.
What was it? What was his name in was it Old Republic? Was it HK-88 or whatever? Like the super hyper violent droid in that. It's all inquiry. I'll kill you, meatbag, or something. It's like, that's great. I want to see more of this. And it expands on that because it is just her. And I like the way, and that kind of goes back to the whole spoiling situation. Was they did. I knew there was a Dr. Aphra series because I had to order the books, but it's like I had, the last issue of Vader hadn't come out yet. And so it's like I didn't know how they were going to follow all this or whatever. And it was kind of sad whenever I read that last issue. And I was like, oh, but she's got her own book.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if they just expected people to think that it was going to be like a pre-story before all the Vader stuff, like tell you where she came from and how she met Vader or what. But there was definitely advertising all over the internet about her series before that issue was released. So this big twist at the end was not a big twist.
Let's see. What else was there? Monsters Unleashed. We already talked about Monsters Unleashed. Yeah, I think we did. There's one book that I just ordered because it seemed intriguing. Satan's Hollow.
Satan's Hollow.
Yeah, I have no idea what it's about. I was like, dude, that looked cool.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that. 4 Kids Walked Into a Bank. The next issue of that's coming out for
Man, I
Black Studios.
didn't get any of those.
Oh, no?
Yeah, that's
You know what?
Black
You're
Mask
fired.
is. Well, no, I order as much as I can.
I'm just kidding.
But unfortunately,
Oh.
the bane of a small store is.
You know
the
what?
first to
I'm
get
wrong.
allocated.
It's I misread the list. It's a variant cover of a third printing. It's not a new next issue.
Okay.
So that's why you're rehired.
All right. Yeah, because Young Terrorist #2 finally came out after a year or so. Yeah, all the Black Mask stuff has been really good. Space Riders, obviously. Is
Yeah.
top, Disciples was really good. What was the one? X'd, I think is what it was, with the dream.
4th issue of that comes out today.
Yeah. Man, Black Mask has been good. I just wish they could actually make more copies, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. Venom issue 3. Did you guys read Venom?
I haven't been reading the new Venom. Is it doing good?
It's surprisingly, yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's getting back to the roots of Venom, but it seems more of trying to get back to the whole Eddie Brock and
Right.
symbiote type of
Right.
relationship. It's a little different, but it's kind of going that route. WWE #1, guys.
Yeah,
Ready?
there you go. If you like wrestling
Got the
comics,
Royal
which a lot of
Rumble
people
variant
do,
coming.
I guess.
Yes.
I mean, being on Twitter and Instagram, there's a lot of people that like those two
Well,
things in conjunction.
There are a few wrestlers that do write comics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, the two
CM Punk.
intersect. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Rockstars 2.
Oh yeah, Rockstars too. That'll be
yes.
exciting. I like that first issue quite a bit.
Man, that one's cool. I like any of those that play on like the psychedelic rock of the 70s.
Yeah.
Like This
Yeah.
Damn Band was probably like the most. Did I tell you about that one? So This Damn Band, it was about a band in the 70s, in the height of that era, and their shtick was that they worshipped this demon, right? So it was like the Alice Cooper type situations, or Kiss situations, or whatever. But it turned out that they were actually worshiping. They didn't know. It was their manager.
That
had
sounds
been
like an episode of Buffy.
Yeah, their manager had got them to do all of this stuff, and they were like, "Oh, this is real." But that was a really good one. But yeah, I don't know. Did we already talk Black Hammer? Of course.
Yep. The only other thing I can think of is the 4th issue, the final issue of that Cage.
Oh,
series that
yes.
is coming out, which I only read the first issue so far, but it was a lot of fun. I loved all the in jokes in there.
Yeah, man, that is just. It's just really, it's just awesome. I can't even, you don't have to worry about story with that. Just enjoy it for what it is.
Yep.
And that, and his art is another one.
Yeah,
I can never pronounce his name.
I think he worked before on like Dexter's Lab and a bunch of those cartoons.
Yeah,
so it's
and,
very reminiscent of that. For
the
people who
Star
did
Wars
those
Clone
cartoons.
Wars, like the
Yeah.
better of the animated ones, like the little 2-minute like Cartoon Network ones or whatever. Those were awesome.
Right.
I loved those. Those were great. But yeah, his art style is a little different,
Yep.
and especially
Stylistic
for a
for sure.
character for like Cage, who's supposed to be like
Yeah.
super tough,
Yeah.
and it's like he doesn't quite look like that. I think the
A little
best part
chibi.
for it was like the panel where like Cyclops is just saying like all just like veined out, just like screaming at it, Jean Grey. It's like that one panel sums up everything about Cyclops. Yeah, just the rage, the intensity, the shooting the blast into the sky. It was it's good times. What else? Anything else?
Awesome.
That's pretty much
Yeah.
all I got on,
Yeah.
on new releases, I should say. There hasn't it's kind of a weird week. I was surprised at how much had come out, not only like the last week of the year, but even like the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's like traditionally they've been, pretty light, but January always starts big because it's, first quarter of the new year and yada, yada, yada. But this week it's just like, it's kind of filler for stuff that's already been out, which is all right. There's a couple of good #1s and, continuation arcs and stuff, but it's kind of that weird interim probably
Yeah.
everything will pick up more in February and then right out through March. It'll be a quiet March, and then April will be huge. And then back and forth.
Well, awesome. Thanks for coming on
Yeah,
and
thanks
talking
for
to us
stopping
about
by.
what's coming up in comics.
Yeah. Yay! Well, thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome. I like it.
Next, I talked to Shane Gilmore in our ongoing People's History of Comics segment. We're here today with Shane Gilmore.
Hello.
Shane, we've known each other for, I'm not sure, several years. We worked together at Home Depot for a while.
7 years.
Well,
As of next month, 7 years.
that's right, yeah.
Gosh, never.
Time flies.
Yes.
So we're doing the People's History Comics, and we have 7 questions that we, whenever we do this segment, that we ask our interviewees. The first question is, how did you get into comics?
Well, the origin story of my love of comics started from I would stay at my grandmother's house. You know, and of course, usually when you're at grandma's house, it's very boring. And I had unearthed some old comic books that my mother and aunt had. They had nothing cool, but I read a lot of Archie and a lot of Dennis the Menace. I was in like 4th and 5th grade. The time that comic books really opened up my brain was, I believe, in '91, and it was a particular Marvel comic called the What If series. So from that point on, once I read the What If, it was called What If Atlantis Attacks. It's just a hypothetical Marvel universe. My comic book world kind of opened up from there.
Is that the first comic that you remember reading as a kid?
It was the one, technically I could not tell you.
Yeah.
But it's the one that created the first vivid memory that I have.
Sure.
It was what if the Marvel superheroes had lost Atlantis attacks? For whatever reason, I had no idea you were going to ask that, but I felt the need to print that out. So
Yeah. Did you have a favorite comic series or a character growing up?
this podcast could probably extend to 3 hours of my telling you that, so I'll try to condense it. There's a lot of them I love, and I'm going to be a little unoriginal, and I'll tell you what, I love Wolverine.
Yeah.
But I love Batman. But I love Frank Castle. But I love Bruce Banner a lot. There's a lot of them, man. There's a lot of them.
Sure.
Primarily from Marvel and a few from DC. I would say Batman probably trumps it all, though, in my opinion.
Batman's pretty awesome. I think he's like the favorite of like most like guys in our generation, like the time that we grew up, maybe a few years older than we are and a few years younger than we are, most everybody.
For people that were coming of age during the Michael Keaton era of Batman, there was just a resurgence for the love of the Dark Knight that happened around 80, 89, 90, 91. The thing is, I don't want to create another question if it's necessary or not, but I love the Marvel Universe way more than I love the DC Universe. Way more. However, I love Batman more than anything Marvel can put out.
Yeah.
I like anti-heroes, I guess.
That makes sense.
The tale of Bruce Wayne is just an amazing tale.
What about currently? Are there any, are the characters that you like growing up the same ones that you like now, or have you found new characters that you're more interested in?
You know what? It really hasn't evolved beyond my original loves. I mean, I can list you I have my, the villains I've always loved, even some that are no longer relevant. And I have the same characters that I've grown to love. I really haven't shifted new characters to love. Now, with the popularity of the Disney pinned Avengers series, there are characters that I'm kind of a little more aware of, like Ant-Man, and the Netflix has really opened my world up to Luke Cage a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now, is he a favorite? Probably not, but I recognize the fact that Luke Cage is a really awesome character.
Yeah, definitely. How have comic books affected you? Is there a comic arc that has a big impact on you? Or a graphic novel?
Not really socially. It hasn't really. I just think they're cool.
Yeah.
I tend to, as I've gotten older, I tend to like Frank Miller a little bit more and more and more. I like Frank Miller. Now, has it impacted my life? I could not tell you. I love the mythology and folklore of comic books. So, as just a form of therapy, just a way to escape and help me understand facets of my world, maybe so, but there's not one particular issue or one particular thing that just, it collectively, it impacts me a lot, but I could not pinpoint specifically what it would be.
Sure.
I could tell you characters, or there's not like one particular issue, other than just having a cool issue. Like Wolverine #1 was cool, but it didn't really impact my life or anything like that.
You mentioned Frank Miller, that kind of makes sense, I think, because maybe not the definitive Batman title, but at least in the top 5 or 10, Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you bet. The thing is that the Frank Miller Batman, they have, the Dark Knight Strikes Again, and they had the Dark Knight Returns. This is around the mid '80s or so.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. I like the artwork, and there's not a lot of symmetry, in the artwork, the storyline. The thing is, it's such a dark book, no pun intended, The Dark Knight,
Yeah.
everything, but that you got to be in that kind of mode to read that kind of thing, because it really is a very grim series.
Yeah. Definitely.
The guy that pinned Sin City is definitely going to have a very dark version of his interpretation of The Dark Knight.
Sure. Do you have a favorite comic book movie or television show?
Gosh, well, a comic book movie. I really like Christian Bale's Batman. I thought Christopher Nolan done a really good job on the trilogy. The Affleck is a work in progress, so there's potential. But I think DC better watch it, because they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. They've already did it with Batman versus Superman. I really like the direction Netflix has gone with just the Jessica Jones, the Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. What's their team is called the Defenders, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so of course that's going to be coming out on Netflix soon. I really like their version, the Netflix version of Daredevil.
Yeah.
I like the Hell's Kitchen thing. It's just gritty. It's realistic. I don't know, man. I really like Deadpool. In fact, I love Deadpool, and I love the character way before he became this pop culture phenomenon. I don't know. I could sit here and just ramble on for 30 minutes, but okay, if I was just to condense the list, Christian Bale Batman. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. What about just a follow-up question? How would you rank actors that have played Batman? Number 1, number 2, number 3. Just like off the top of your head without thinking about it too much.
Okay. Here you go. Christian Bale,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Keaton,
Mm-hmm.
Adam West,
Mm-hmm.
Ben Affleck, and of course there's like that 1940s Batman that's black and white that I've never seen. I could not tell you the actors, but I don't know if there's any other. Well, and if you want to do, I'm delving beyond the territory of top of my head here,
Mm-hmm.
but they had the voice actor. What's his name? Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
That did. He did the
Multiple.
Arkham series.
Yeah.
He's done even though he doesn't play him physically, his voice sounds very astute. It definitely sounds like a Bruce Wayne voice. But you know what? The best. It's like listening to your favorite James Bond guys. Who's your favorite?
Sure.
Everybody says Connery. So Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, blah 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 blah. Adam West, Ben Affleck. That's a work in progress, and whoever, some dude I couldn't tell you from the 40s. So.
A cruel deity is about to destroy every comic in the world. You get to save 5 story arcs. What do you choose?
Story arcs like storylines that I actually remember.
Yeah, or I mean, you can.
Because that could encompass a lot. Man.
You could even extend it to just like titles, you know. But like a story arc would be like God Loves, Man Kills, the X-Men story arc.
All right, my memory in regards to that is a little hazy, so I'm just going to probably give you vague things that I vaguely remember. I'm going to be a little unoriginal here. The Secret Wars.
Okay.
And that's
the original Secret Wars.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part 2 is just kind of a joke, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Killing Joke.
Okay.
I'm just simply listing things that I think are cool. Okay.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's your choice, so you are allowed to pick whatever you want.
Cool. That's awesome. And you know what? Since we have my dear friend Frank Miller here, then the Frank Miller Batman. Why not?
All right.
I'm going to be biased in that sense. Let's throw a little Image Comics in there. Let me throw some Spawn in there.
Okay.
Storyline, I don't know, man. You probably know that one more than I do. But just something with Spawn.
All right.
And in the 5th, man, I was going to say Archie, but no, I don't know. I don't know. Just some Jim Lee era title, X-Men. You know, early 90s.
Yeah.
I'm really bad about remembering the names. I really am, and I apologize, but that's all I can tell you.
Sure. Okay. So another hypothetical question. You can have drinks with one comic character, the character, not the actor who played them or the historical person they are based on. Who would you have a drink with?
Oh, gosh. Well, I would say Logan, but I'm afraid I would probably die the next day trying to drink with, I don't know
trying to keep up
what
with
the
Logan.
effect of adamantium is in your bloodstream, but I would imagine old Logan could probably toss back a few.
Sure.
You know what? Maybe Frank Castle.
Okay.
Because he seems like he would be he has a persona of being like a lone barfly. You know, he drinks alone, and you know, Frank Castle seems like the kind of guy that would be just hutched up in a corner, drinking and listening to the jukebox. And so, yeah, you know what? Frank Castle.
All right.
It wouldn't be fun. It would be kind of depressing, but still, I like Frank Castle.
Sure. And the final question is, what's the last comic you read?
As far as the entirety of it goes, gosh, you're the one that recommended it to me, and I liked it. And it has like something girls or the paper.
Paper Girls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The library had that. It was just like a volume 1 or something like that. But yeah, from beginning to end, I read it. I could not tell you names or anything, but I really liked it a lot. It reminded me of a lot of that Netflix series, Stranger Things, in a way.
I could definitely see that. Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed that one too. Before we wrap up, do you have any comics that you want to recommend to people to check out, or anything that you're excited about as far as comics go?
You know what? As far as anything in the future goes, I'm not really well versed into it, and I could easily dive in. I definitely need to do it. I'm going to go back to the one artist, one innovator that I'm just going to go back to my favorite. Check out Frank Miller's Sin City. Check out his version of Batman or his version of Daredevil. Just Frank Miller.
Yeah.
You know, if you like things a little gritty, a little too real, Frank Miller's the way to go. There's probably not a happy resolution in a lot of his stories, but it's just, if you like things very authenticated, check out anything with Frank Miller.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming to talk to us today, Shane.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
So those were our segments. I hope you enjoyed those. Cory, what do you recommend that I read this week?
I have two recommendations.
2 weeks. We're going to be weekly soon, hopefully, but not yet.
Okay, so for the next 2 weeks, number one recommendation is Black Hammer.
Okay.
Written by Jeff Lemire, illustrated by Dean Ormston and Dave Stewart. Just to give you like just a little bit of idea of what it's about, there's a group of superheroes that are stranded on a farm and have been stranded there for 10 years. And each issue, there have been 6 issues released so
it's
far.
like an extended version of the farm scene from Avengers.
Right, yeah. There's been 6 issues. Each issue delves into the past life of like each hero that's stuck on the farm. And then today, the giant size annual Black Hammer comes out. So I'm excited to read that. It's a really interesting story. We talked some with Bryan about how awesome it is. But just for a good character study, I really recommend it. It was really good. And then my second recommendation, until Doom Patrol returns, I'm reading The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys.
So that's a fun comic.
Yeah. Written by Gerard Way and illustrated by Becky Cloonan, who is currently writing the Punisher series.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that the art really matches the story.
Yeah, definitely so.
It's a fun read.
So, there's an album and a music video that go along with this comic that I think come before the comic, right?
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to reading this and then listening to it and maybe reading and listening at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you seen the music video before?
I have, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's got Grant Morrison in it. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, he plays a character in the comic, if that's possible. They just drew him in there. So, yeah, I really liked it when it came out. It was awesome.
I'm excited. And I'm excited for Doom Patrol. And I'm excited for issue 5 of Doom Patrol because the variant is illustrated by Farrell Dalrymple.
Oh, yeah. Man, I got to get at least like 4 of those.
Yeah.
And then Michael Allred is going to be doing art for it eventually. Good. So that's going to be amazing.
All your dreams are coming
true.
Scout, what do you recommend this week?
I need to start writing down what I've recommended in the past because I can never remember.
You can dual recommend. It's just that much more recommended.
I'm going to recommend that people check out Slam because
Slam is so good.
The second issue was just as good as the first, and the third is coming out today. Yeah. So I loved, especially with issue 2. Issue 1, I felt like was really empowering and said kind of a find your tribe aspect if you're struggling, which is something that I think I've always struggled with, even more so the older that I get. But and then number 2 was great because I feel like it talks a little about what it's like when you feel like you have too much on your plate. These girls are struggling to kind of get started in roller derby. And one of the girls who's been in roller derby for a long time, it shows one page is just great panels of her practicing. And then she goes to work where she works at a VA hospital. Right. And then she goes for a run before she gets home. And then she's finally in bed. And it's just like, another girl is struggling with practicing along with studying for school, and it also talks a little bit about not giving up if you fail the first time, because one of the girls doesn't get to participate in the first bout because they don't think she's quite ready yet, but she's determined and she just goes out and practices more. So definitely something really fun to check out that, again, Boom Comics doing great things. It's a lot of fun.
Vinton, what do you recommend?
Yeah.
I would recommend definitely Unstoppable Wasp for sure. I also recommend to myself that I read more than just Marvel comics because I've been just like buried in Marvel comics recently. But there's so many to keep up with that by the time I finish reading all the ones I want to read for Marvel and I get the other things, being the Marvel fanboy that I am, I try to keep those secondary because there's so many Marvel things I want to keep up with. There's just no time left.
I think I'm the opposite. I think I feel so overwhelmed by everything Marvel's doing that I haven't been reading much Marvel at all lately.
I can see that. I've just been like fighting because there was a long enough time where I wasn't keeping up with anything Marvel, and now that I'm caught up on pretty much everything I want to be caught up on, I don't want to lose it again, and so I fight real hard to keep up with it. But yeah, I definitely need to start reading more non-Marvel stuff. Of course, we mention it all the time. The places that are doing really good stuff there. Black Mask Studios, Image is still putting out amazing stuff, and of course, Young Animal So I'm fortunately keeping up with Young Animal, but they're not keeping up with putting comics out quick enough for me.
Exactly.
I've been pleasantly surprised by Dark Horse recently.
Yeah, and then Dark
months.
Horse is another one that I used to really love, and I just haven't been reading anything they've been doing recently. So I need to get back to that too. Black Hammer especially. So I think I'm going to make a effort to have read more non-Marvel stuff by next podcast. So that's going to do it for our show today. We will be seeing you in 2 more weeks. Remember that we are going to be pushing to moving this show to weekly, hopefully. We're going to be setting a Patreon goal. So if you don't know, this show is financed completely by those giving on Patreon, our wonderful Patreon supporters. Check out patreon.com, patreon.com/Graphocast, GRAPHOCAST, to kick us $1 or more a month, whatever you feel like, and get some extra goodies there and keep this show going along with every other show on the Graphomania Podcast Network. Hit us up on social media. We are on Instagram at Read Brave Comics, on Twitter at Graphocast, GRAPHOCAST. Personally, I'm at Flesh Eater.
I'm at Lord Tap Mood.
At Scout Casto.
And you can also find me on Tumblr if you like comics and are on Tumblr at flesheater.tumblr/Tumblr, whatever it is. You know what it is. If you use Tumblr.
Tumblr.com. You don't want my Tumblr address unless you really like Chris Evans.
Who doesn't? We do have a lot of new listeners recently, so I would just like to thank you all for listening and hit us up. We'd love to hear from you and what your favorite comics are. This is a community-built comic podcast, so if you have ideas for segments, or if you possibly would even like to be on sometime, let us know, and you can email us at contact@graphocast.com. Thanks to the Scurvies for our intro and outro music. You can check out more of their music at scurvies.bandcamp.com. And thanks to Blaster the Rocket Man, who provided the music in between segments for this episode. You can check out more of their music by just Googling, because they're not around anymore. And there's some of their stuff on YouTube and other places.
You can find a lot of great old live videos on YouTube.
You sure
and that's
can.
the best place to start, in my opinion.
Until next time, I'm Vinton Bain.
I'm Cory Casto.
I'm Scout Casto.
Read more comics and talk with us online. Except Cory, who's never online to talk to you.
We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time.
What? Excelsior. This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, GRAPHOCAST.com. Follow us on Twitter at Graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.